No, but I'll take that as opening, Maria. Really, you never
Oy, Robin,
expected? I
wala.
mean, or in all honesty, was this a surprise at all?
Not a surprise. I mean, I was
Mm,
preparing for the worst case scenario because you have to, right? In the situation
mm,
that we're in with everything that's happened. Uh, but still appalling, you know.
mm,
And when we quickly skimmed the verdict, very anger inducing, and of course we walked right in and talked to the press after that. It's expected in that sense, yes, but now, you know, what the trolls were saying in 2016, not she's not a journalist, she's a criminal. Well, it took 4 years later, but the justice system now actually echoed this kind of insidious attack on social media, and it's
mm,
weakened press freedom. I mean,
mm,
imagine, look at that, right? We were in court today at a time when we're debating whether or not the lockdown should be put in place again. I This was fast, and we seem to be a test case for a lot of things. So, what can you say, right?
mm,
Okay,
mm, mm.
Maria, before we proceed with the principles that I know you hold dear, can we just ask you a few basic questions about how you forwarded your defense in court? A basic question would be this: uh, why did you not allow yourself and Mr. Santos to stand as witnesses?
So I'll speak on my behalf, right? Because I
Mm,
think in something like that, you should talk to Ted, because this is ultimately also our lawyer, Ted,
Yeah.
his decision. But imagine this case was filed 1 month after the government tried to shut down Rappler. We had
Right.
our license to operate revoked. And then
Yeah.
this case happened. And then that same month, Pia Ranada was banned from the palace. And then we had a slew of cases in 2018, 11 in total
Mm.
in 1 year, right? So at that point, one of the things I realized was that every time I participated in some kind of government hearing,
Mm.
my words were being used against us.
mm,
Anything, like you say yellow, and it would be turned upside down, and it's a new case. You
Mm.
know,
mm,
our tax evasion cases, there was actually there wasn't any work done. And again, I can't go into so much detail because obviously these things are still there's sub judice. I spent 2019, 90% of my time was going in and out of course. There were weeks I would go to 4 different courtrooms in a
mm,
week,
mm,
you know. So for me, aside from the fact that I actually had nothing to do with this article because uh, I I run the business, I run tech, I run maybe
Mm.
I set the strategic goal, but Gloria, our team runs one runs
Yes.
Rappler. So I knew nothing about the story, and that was part of the defense. And what's so interesting to me is how the judge decided without really even asking, or the judge decided that my title was actually
yeah,
a
A
clever
ruse. Yes.
ruse.
a
Yeah,
ruse. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I actually want to know. I mean, well, and let me not go there. You know,
Why was
in
that?
order to bring this case to court, the law can't be cybercrime law can't be retroactive. In fact, the NBI lawyer actually threw that out for the first time, and then
Initially,
a week.
yes.
Mm,
Yes, right. But in order to do it, what they actually did was come up with this novel idea of continuous publication,
mm.
Yes.
and then
Republication. Yes.
republication. And that
Mm.
was essentially a Rappler saw a typo error, so changed one letter in one word. And then
Mm.
the court, to bring it to court,
Right.
then they said that, well, you republished this 2 years later. We
Right.
pointed out that there was still a TRO on this law that we supposedly violated, but that didn't
Mm,
make a difference. It's nowhere in the
Mm.
verdict, I think. So Ray was no longer with Rappler at that
Mm.
time. He wasn't involved in a supposed republication. So why should he testify?
But surely
And
he
then,
could have been
okay.
subpoenaed. And I too faced a libel case when we were together in ABS. I'm not in ABS anymore, but I'm still being subpoenaed for it.
ah,
So
but this is
yeah.
different. Again, the context of it, right? Every
Mm,
time I spoke or anything that wasn't material, there was a fishing expedition all the time. And that was the
Mhm.
context of 2018. And that's why you can't take the cyber libel case on its own. Because in
Mm.
the full context of that, the fishing expedition was on all fronts. It was almost like when President Duterte attacked Rappler at the State of the Nation address. A week later, I got the first subpoena, and then it was open
Mm.
season. It was, attack Rappler, and it's legal.
Mm.
Weaponize the law against them. And I think the end goal truly was to arrest me. And they did in 2019, right? I was arrested twice in a 5-week period and
Mm.
detained once.
I want you to make it clear um, how you make how you make that argument that this is not about a private case. How do you because
For the
people, as Ed
individual, you
said,
mean?
people will look at this and it's very easy to grasp the private interests of Mr. King. But how do you make that argument that it's beyond that? What are the concrete connections that will make it very clear to the public, your narrative, that no, this is actually not about Mr. King suing Rappler. It is about President Duterte attacking press freedom. How do you make that clear connection?
Sure, I'll give you three actions, right? The legal acrobatics to bring the case to court. Imagine
Mm.
changing the period of prescription from 1 year to 12 years.
Mm.
Imagine a novel creation called continuing publication. This novel idea of continuing crime is something that's been used against many perceived enemies of President Duterte, including Anita Llanes. Anyway, those are the two things. But oh, it's noisy there. Um,
Yes.
but but the other part of this is who litigated the case, right? It wasn't there was an army of lawyers on the other side that included the Department of Justice, the prosecutors for the government. It couldn't have moved forward without the Department of Justice pushing it forward. Um, Even interesting to me was today at the actual, this is a minor court, right? This is before the Court of Appeals, and we have the Supreme Court kind of involved in the press conference that we gave today. The PIO was the one that gave you your copy of the verdict itself. And then just I said three. Let me add a fourth. Again, I will go back in 2018 after the president said that the essentially opened the floodgates for open season on Rappler. Um, in January, we lost our license to operate. We kept fighting it, but of course, just like with ABS-CBN, a minor regulatory agency that should have been an administrative charge takes something and pushes it to the exponential degree. uh, some of the companies, including some of the ones affiliated with you, were given a year to change something far worse. Let's just say if there was something in that case. This one, they shut us down without giving us the ability to actually talk about it. This is the way I feel about this case again. Find a plausible reason, a narrative that can work, and then bring down the gavel, bring down the hammer. I can go to jail for 6 years for this typo. And then you look at some of the things that were quoted in the verdict. Tulfo wasn't jailed, he wasn't convicted, he was fined, right? So there's definitely special treatment
Yeah.